The metaphysics of time. It's one of those areas of analytic philosophy where you still find argumentative, serious defenses of views that we would otherwise describe as completely bonkers. You have people arguing that ordinary objects like tables and chairs are actually four-dimensional space-time worms, and that they're stretched out over time in the way that they're stretched out over space, so that every time you interact with an ordinary object, really you're just interacting with a minuscule piece of some gigantic space-time worm. You have people arguing that now is the only moment that's real, and that the past and the future are merely an illusion. You have people arguing that according to the laws of logic, every single event that ever will happen is already fated to happen. You have people arguing that past, present, and future aren't real things, and others. Unsurprisingly, this whole area of philosophy had its beginnings with the defense of a view that we would ordinarily describe as bonkers too, namely the view that time isn't even real. It all began in the early 20th century with the redundantly named haunted photograph model John McTaggart Ellis McTaggart, a metaphysician at Trinity College at Cambridge, who defended the idealist philosophy of Hegel and, in 1908, wrote his own treatise on the nature of existence called The Nature of Existence. It's a couple thousand pages and very complicated, but basically, in it, McTaggart argues that the only things that are ultimately real are immortal souls and the relationships of love in between them. Yes, it turns out that McTaggart was kind of a hippie. If you're actually curious about this philosophy, you don't have to read all 2,000 pages of The Nature of Existence. Instead, you can check out the book Truth, Love, and Immortality by Peter Geach, which is a clear contemporary representation of what McTaggart's philosophy would really amount to in light of present scholarly philosophical questions. Now, McTaggart thought that our concept of time didn't make any sense at all, and that when you examined it closely, you'd realize that it involved a contradiction. But, he thought, if you're going to try to make sense of the notion of time and defend it as a real objective feature of our world, there are two approaches to doing so. Both approaches agree on one thing, namely that whatever time is some kind of order. More specifically, it's an ordering of events, or an ordering of states of affairs. All realists about time agree that time is some kind of ordering. What they disagree over is what that order consists in. The two approaches that McTaggart lays out are two ways to explain temporal ordering. These approaches are still defended and taken seriously by philosophers today. The first approach is the A-theory of time, or the tensed theory of time. A-theorists believe that the nature of time is such that events are ordered into past, present, and future. It's an objective fact, according to the A-theory, that some events in the future have not happened yet, but they will happen soon. Other events are in the present, in the objective now, and other events still have already been in the now, and now they are in the past. The atheist believes that the distinction of past, present, and future is not relative, it is not perspectival, rather it is an objective fact about the universe that it has made it up until this point, and that certain events are now in its past, while other events are now in its future. But the division of events into past, present, and future constitute a series called the A-series. So according to the A-theory, the order which time consists in is the ordering of past, present, and future. The other approach that McTaggart lays out is the B-theory, or the detensed theory of time. According to B-theorists, time consists in merely this fact, that some events are earlier than others, some events are later than others, and other events are simultaneous with one another. And that's it. There's no objective now, which is moving along. The B-theorist will admit that some events are past relative to other events, and other events are future relative to some events. But they will not think that there's an objective past and an objective future. B-theorists tend to think of time as a static line, with events all equal laid along various parts of it. B-theorists believe that the division of events into being earlier, later, and simultaneous constitute a series called the B-series. Now wait a minute, you may find saying yourself, why aren't these two theories the very same thing? Why isn't the A-series just the B-series? Why isn't the division of events into past, present, and future just the same thing as dividing events into being earlier and later than one another? Well, the basic reason why the A-series and the B-series are not the same thing is that an event can change its position in the A-series, but no event will ever change its position in the B-series. So let's take an example. Consider two events, Halloween of 2014 and Halloween of 2200. Halloween of 2014 is in the past now, but it wasn't always in the past. Once, Halloween of 2014 was in the present. Even before it was in the present, Halloween of 2014 was in the future. It was once the case, in other words, that Halloween of 2014 was a future event. Way back in 2013, we could have said,
"Hey, Halloween of 2014 is in the future." future.
And we would be speaking truthfully. So given that an event's position in the A series is just its status of being a past event, a present event, or a future event, we can see that Halloween of 2014 changes its position in the A series. It was once future, and then it was once present, but now it's past. The same thing holds for Halloween of 2200. Right now, Halloween of 2200 is in the future, but someday it will be October 31st, 2200, and at that point, Halloween of 2200 will be in the present. Once Halloween of 2200 is over, furthermore, that event will no longer be present. Instead, it will be a literal thing of the past. Like Halloween of 2014, Halloween of 2200 changes its position in the A series too. And so it is with every event. When we examine events from the perspective of the A theory, we see that they are constantly changing their position in the A series, going from the future to the present, and going from the present to the past. This is in fact the way that A theorists give literal content to the idea that time flows or passes. Think about how time feels for a moment. It feels like your next birthday is getting closer and closer, while your last birthday is getting further and further into the past. We say that time flies when we're having fun, but that events drag on when we're not having fun. We say that it passes, that it flows, that it steals our years away, leaving memories behind, and that it keeps on into the future. When we describe our experience of time, in other words, it's common to use dynamic language that implies something like flow or movement in space. This language is metaphorical, of course. Time can't literally flow or pass. I mean, think about it. If time literally flowed or passed, what would be the rate at which it passed? 1 second per second? Yes, obviously, but that's hardly informative. In fact, philosophers have been keenly interested in what, if anything, is the literal content of our temporal idioms like time flows or time passes. When we say that time passes, what on earth do we mean? The A theorist claims to have an answer. When we say that time flows, what we literally mean, according to the A theorist, is that events which are now in the future will soon be present, that once they are in the present they will soon be past, and that, in general, events are constantly changing their position in the A series. A continuous change which, once we notice that events occur in a single sequence, is kind of like flow or movement. When we look at the A series, what we see is that events change their position constantly. Now let's take a look at those same events, Halloween of 2014 and Halloween of 2200, and ask ourselves, do these events change their position in the B series? When we remember that an event's position in the B series is nothing more than its being earlier and later than various events, we can immediately conclude that no, events do not change their position in the B series. If you look at the event of Halloween 2014, its position in the B series amounts to this. Halloween of 2014 is later than Halloween of 2013, and earlier than Halloween of 2015, and much earlier than Halloween of 2200. Halloween of 2014 was simultaneous with a half moon. So what is Halloween 2014's position in the B series? Its position in the B series is just that it is later than Halloween 2013, simultaneous with a certain half moon, earlier than both Halloween 2015 and Halloween 2200, and so on. Its position in the B series is just its being earlier, later, and simultaneous with various events. But look, none of those relations ever change. If Halloween of 2014 is later than Halloween of 2013, it always was later than Halloween 2013, and always will be later than Halloween of 2013. There was never a point in history, nor will there ever be a point in history, when somehow Halloween of 2014 is earlier than Halloween of 2013. It just can't happen. It's impossible. Given that those events are positioned where they are in the timeline, their positions will never change. The event of Halloween 2014 is locked in place on the timeline, so that its place on the timeline will never change, no matter how much time passes. If it's earlier than Halloween 2200, it always was and always will be earlier than Halloween of 2200. And so it is with all events. This is nothing special about Halloween. If one event is earlier than another event, the first event will always be earlier than the second event. It will never be the case that that second event is somehow earlier than the first. This is true no matter which events we're talking about. No single event changes its position on the timeline relative to other events. No single event changes its position in the B series. The B series is really a static collection of events laid out in a certain order, and that order never changes. There's no passage, there's no movement, there's no alteration, there's nothing dynamic if we look at the B series and the B series alone. And this is why being in the B series is very different from being in the A series. An event in the A series will change its status within the A series, going from the future to the present, from the present to the past, and then receding ever further into the past, ever more remote from the present. The reason why the A series and the B series are different is that an event will change its position in one but not in the other.
Okay, so now that we're clear on that, let's turn to McTaggart's argument for the unreality of time, which is the topic of our next video.